Years back, or many years ago, marriage is always part of the plan of every man and every woman's life. You go to school, when you're done with school, you graduate, get a job, and after, the next thing is to get married. But now, it has changed. Marriage is dying. I mean, there are many reasons why marriage is dying, and I've mentioned that in so many of my videos. But what's in it for men? I mean, if women are saying, this is why we ditched marriage, this is why we are no longer interested in marriage, what is the advantage or the benefit that men get from staying single forever? That's what we're talking about in this video. According to stats, do you know that marriage fell by 60% since the 1960s? That means that people that were born or that were due to get married after 1960 decided not to get married. There's this belief that, it is much easier for men to create wealth when they are married. But from what has been happening now, it is obvious that for men to create wealth and to be able to keep that wealth, it means that they have to stay single. Every time you're comfortable with where you stay, the clothes you wear, the car you drive, you're comfortable with your lifestyle, but your wife is not comfortable with that lifestyle. She feels that you guys need to move out, you guys need to get a better apartment. After so much convincing, you decide to step up. Now, that money that will be needed to get a better apartment, where will it be taken from? The money that you've been piling up, the money that you've been trying to scale up to make sure it gets to a certain target before the end of the year. I have a friend. He wasn't married, so to say, but he had a lady that was pregnant for him and she had a child. And immediately she had the child, she was complaining about where they stayed, saying that they needed to leave the current apartment they were staying in London and get a one-bedroom. They were staying in a studio and she wanted them to move to a one-bedroom. Now, for those of us that know how expensive apartments are in London, he was convinced and he did that. Now, expenses of this apartment alone coughs up or takes about 60% of his earnings. What am I even saying? About 70% of what he collects as salary. This has been putting him in financial trauma ever since then. That's a typical example. If he was single or if he didn't have, a baby mama with him, he would have been comfortable staying in that studio and he would have been there for years till he's able to easily afford a better apartment. Emotional stability is another advantage. Men that have decided to stay single and ditch marriage are now able to be matured emotionally. They don't need to live their lives to please women. They don't need to live their life to please the woman in their life because they want sex or they want intimacy. I'll give you a scenario here. When men are single, they are stable emotionally. When he now meets a lady he loves and that lady is giving him what he wants, intimacy and otherwise, you notice that anytime this lady doesn't pick his calls, he's not okay. He's not in a good mood. Anytime their relationship is having issues, they're having little fight here and there, you notice that your friend might not be in a good mood, might refuse to pick up calls, might not show up at work. All these things, by the time she's done and she decides to break up with him, you realize that your friend will go into a deep hole and sometimes he might never come back. And in most cases, when he comes back, it takes time for him to recover from the loss of the relationship. However, when this man or when men like this stay single, there is no climax in their emotional state or a massive decline in their happiness. There's a what we call a steady increase of happiness and fulfillment as time goes by. Someone told me that marriage is a sexual trap. And I think at this point, I believe in. Even successful marriages that doesn't have to do with the wife denying her husband intimacy, you notice that there are long periods where men are not able to have coitus with their wives. Not to talk of a marriage whereby the woman believes at every disagreement that she's having with her husband, what she can use to show her importance is to deny the husband intimacy. Now, this doesn't happen to single men or men that are not interested in marriage because they are not tied to a woman, whether by contract or by, any form. They are able to have different relationship, start different relationship, and end them at any time. In fact, single men are not interested in relationship nowadays. What they're just interested in is having intimacy. And there are different ways and different forms that you can get intimacy from a woman without any form of commitment. This is another benefit that today's men get. Now, when you're married, another trap that you will likely get into is your wife will tell or determine where you guys will stay. Or should I say, not your wife really, but how you want to raise your family and other factors like proximity of your family members, whether your wife's family members or your own family members, will determine where you guys will stay. But this doesn't happen to single men. Single men, because they are self-reliant, they can live anywhere in the world. There are men that have left the USA and are currently living in Africa because that is the only way they can reduce expenses on rent or mortgage. There are men that have already also left, different parts of the world to move to a better place just because they don't want to be tied to, the earnings they make in that country. The inner peace. Because you're not devoted to anyone, it is easier to find your inner peace. You wake up in the morning, you feel light, you don't feel the urge to do some things, you don't feel the urge to check up on someone because she has gone to work, you don't feel the urge to take care of someone, you don't feel the urge to spend money on your wife's family. To be married is to be under influence. This influence can be the influence of your wife, your family, the church or the government that brought the two of you together. But when you're a single man, you're not under any influence and you don't owe anyone, so to say, any explanation on how you live your life. This is one of the reasons why many men have decided to stay single. Wrapping up, there are many factors that will determine whether there will be more marriages in the nearest future. Let me go deeper. Example, one of the reasons why marriages are expensive now is raising children. Now, when you have just one child in a country like the US, for example, the hospital bills that piles up just on the delivery of the baby goes into thousands of dollars. Now, when you're spending about $20,000, $30,000 just on having a baby, what about a man that wants to have 2 children, 3 children? All these expenses, there are no incentives as to ways that the government can come in to support men. This is why many men, especially in the US, have decided not to even get married, not to talk of, having children. Now, I hope this video was insightful. I hope you were able to learn one or two things from this video. As usual, drop your comments below. Let me know what you think about this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.